Yeah, so thanks everyone for joining. Get comfortable. And it's our great pleasure to welcome Tracy. Uh, Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
She's a senior lecturer at the University of Western Australia Conservatorium of Music, where she teaches electronic music and sound design and contemporary popular music. And today we will hear about songwriting as a system, the semantic machine, a song that changes with the world around you. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thanks for actually coming in today. It's an effort. I understand. So today I'm going to talk to you about the semantic machine, which is a project that started here at Queen Mary in 2015. Essentially, it's a song that changes with the world around you. It changes based on your location, the time of day, and the weather in that location. And I'll talk a bit more about that as we go. But just a bit of background. In 2008, I released my last album as a singer-songwriter guitarist. And that year was the year that the recording industry kind of fell down. And I thought, how on earth am I going to retire comfortably if I've spent the last 10 to 15 years building up my career as a recording artist when the business model of recordings was disappearing and the value changed. And so at the same time, music was digitized, and I began to think how that might actually affect the form of recorded music. And one of the questions that drove my research for about 15 years was if interactive technologies and AI technologies available to us might, what could recorded music become into the future? And if it was something that wasn't static and fixed, and it was something more dynamic, would that create more value in recorded music? And not just economic value, but cultural value and artistic value as well. So the semantic machine was developed collaboratively with Florian Salmon, who knows Florian? Anyone here know Florian? Yep. Hello, you. So he was doing a postdoc here as part of the FAST project, headed up by Mark. And that started, when did that start? 2014? Yeah, and I think I came on board as an external artist in about 2015 to 2016, around that time. And who here knows about the FAST program? So most of you. So it's using audio and semantic technologies. So at the time, to be honest, I still didn't really have my head wrapped around what semantic technologies were. It was way before ChatGPT and any of the language-based models. And we were trying to look at, from an artistic side for me, how semantic technologies might make my processes easier as a composer. So this project was first launched as a prototype at the Fast Industry Day at Abbey Road Studios in 2018. And I just want to emphasize how exciting that was for me as an Australian girl to be hearing my mixes over the speakers in Studio 2 at Abbey Road Studios. I think I was anxious for about a year beforehand. And if you're wondering if I did, yes, I did. But I had a few wines at this point, and so the photographer, so we didn't quite. This is a recontextualization of the famous photo. So at its core, the semantic machine is a dynamic song system, a rethinking of what a song can be. It's not designed as a fixed recording, but a work that shifts based on context. And this idea isn't new. Before recorded songs existed and analog technology was developed, every time we heard music, it was different, because the only way to hear music was to hear a performance of it. And depending on the performer's emotional mood or the venue or the audience, the performance changed and there was more variation. So I really like this quote When you think about it, recorded music is something of a historical oddity. Imagine telling a visitor from 1650 that we listen to the same exact performances over and over again without any variation. They might be baffled, or as Brian, once said, perhaps it's our grandchildren who will be the baffled ones. So although we have all this new technology available to us, the recorded song in a commercial sense is still a static form as we know it. And I think as a society, that's how we see a song. We see it as a fixed recording that can be copied. But technology has changed. We're no longer recording a moment in time in the studio with the band. We're recording practices and overdubs. We are not creating music in one moment of time, the way that we compose. So it's interesting that we're still producing for that medium. So I've spent a lot of time over the last 15 years working with lots of different ways that music can work with data, like generative systems, interdeterminacy, responsive media. And I wanted to do something around a song. So today I'm going to talk about this work, but I'm going to talk about it in the context of an evaluation model I created, which looks at how to compose transmutable music, which I'll talk about in a minute. So before we start, let's have a listen to the song. It's just one instance. And in a little while, we can have a listen to what the song sounds like now with the current weather. And I can show you some other examples of how it sounds in different locations as well. So this is just one example of the song. I'll just play a minute or so of it, just to give you an idea of how it can sound. I can manage to work my computer. Right. Do I have to do it up here? Oh. Okay. Okay. So over many years now, I've worked on, as I said, a lot of different types of music, like interactive music, adaptive music, and video gaming, live or technology mediated performance. And I've also analysed a lot of work from a lot of other artists that are working with music that changes with data. And something that I found is that there's a lot of similarities of how you compose music that can change with data. And so I thought maybe if we can create some kind of model, it might help us composers be able to create better music that can change. And earlier on in my research, I found a problem in about 2011. there was this exciting new interactive music format that was going to change the world. And I downloaded it. It was called by iClax, and it was a song by Michael Jackson, Billie Jean. It just had 4 tracks, and you could turn the volume up and down, the drums and the bass and the synths. And I just got bored in about 20 seconds. And yes, fair enough, there is more you can do than a static recorded song. But I began to see with other examples that artists were still thinking about creating a fixed song and then putting it into a new system, and suddenly it would be an interactive and dynamic experience. And a good analogy is if you take a painting that you've painted and scan it into a computer to digitize, and you wouldn't just expect it to become animated because it was digitized. Maybe with AI, you might be able to do something with it now, but the idea is there's 2 different mediums, creating a painting and creating an animation, and they involve different approaches. And that's how I see static and dynamic music. Static music has approaches of how you compose a fixed song, and there are some similarities in dynamic music, music that can change with data, but there are a lot of other approaches and tools and techniques to be able to create music that is actually good. So I thought maybe if people knew how to compose better for music that can change with data, we'd start getting some more interesting artworks and maybe new mediums of recorded music. So I came up with an umbrella term, transmutable music, and I used dynamic music in my PhD thesis, but the publisher of my book and the reviewer said, it's already used, that we use the term dynamics in music all the time to describe dynamics of the song, the gain. And so they said you need a different term because it's confusing. Now, it is the term that the video industry uses to describe interactive and adaptive music. So interactive music, when you press a button or you do something, something happens and you can hear it, where adaptive music would be as you're exploring a game, the music changes with context. So transmutable music is an umbrella term for music that changes in response to data and offers new listening experiences beyond what we can do with static music. So all of these forms of music come under the transmutable music umbrella. And they all have a similar compositional model of how you could think about composing for them. So reactive, adaptive, responsive, generative, interactive AI. I mean, AI is changing rapidly, so we'll see how that goes. Contextual, autonomous, and algorithmic music all have a lot of similarities, although they're very different as well in their approaches. But if we had some compositional model and an evaluation framework, then maybe we could help composers create better experiences than we're getting created at the moment. A lot of people still have a fixed song and then try to add things later and make it interactive, but it was never interactive in the first place. So many of the approaches actually that I found that we're using, especially from video gaming composition, because that's where a lot of this stuff's coming from, is from 20th century experimental composers and the avant-garde. What they were doing with serialism, interdeterminacy are the main kind of aspects of composing this kind of music. So this is the evaluation model. So there's 4 components: the control system, and that organizes the data. It transforms the data, maybe changes the ratios, maybe does some audio analysis. That might be a neural network in there, some kind of system that then is somehow mapped to musical content. And that could be a loop or a stem, or it could be a library, it could be a patch, it could be a procedural audio coding or something like that. But whatever it is, the control system basically organizes that into some kind of musical architecture where the form and the structure of the work is. And that all happens and then produces the rendered real-time musical output. And in there, I've added experience as well, because if we go to all this trouble to make a piece of music that is dynamic and changeable, but the person listening to it doesn't understand that's what's happening, what's the point of going to all that trouble? You could have just made a static recording to begin with. So the listener needs to understand what's actually happening and the possibilities that the artwork is providing to have some change. So there's feedback data is really important there as well. And that could be feedback of the musical, of the way it sounds. So every time you listen to it, it sounds different, for example, or it could be visual feedback, depending on if there's some kind of interactivity element involved. So I started to create an evaluation model because obviously you can't really evaluate music to taste and perception, but we can evaluate the process and the creation and experience of the work. And the reason I wanted to do this was to help artists make better transmutable music, essentially. And I don't think it's going to replace fixed music or static music, but it might be a new branch of music where artists start exploring these things. And many of you in the room are already doing it as well. So it'd be interesting to see what you think about the compositional model too. So the way that I thought to evaluate, I was looking, a lot of people were trying to standardize different formats, but I didn't think that we've really created enough formats to make something really good yet, that, if that makes sense. So I thought, so each artwork would have its own concept and the way it uses data, if it's sonify the data or you know, create mappings of the data, there must be some kind of objective or goal. And then the compositional model, as I showed you the 4 components and how that all relates. And then I also developed 3 evaluation criteria, which I'll talk about briefly in a minute. But I wanted to evaluate the semantic machine based on this for you, so you can we can sort of talk about some of the findings of the work. It took 9 years to get to this point. And a lot of that was having other projects to work on. I was sick for a few years, and Florian's no longer in the research area. He's working in Kyoto in the video game industry. So it's taken a while to figure out how to finish this project from the prototype. So from the prototype, I realized that I had to compose a lot more music to make it interesting and to make it sort of fit the way I wanted it to be more as a composer. And what it is it's a context responsive song, and it takes the form of a mobile app because that's really, there was no other way to release it or publish it due to the system. And it's built based on the changes of the weather. So once you turn the app on, it sends your GPS coordinates to the weather API, Google location services, and it's really about how the population density. So it's not every location in the world that the music changes. It's how close you are to nature or how close you are to the city. And there's different variables in there that will make changes depending on if you're in nature. I personally like the music when I'm in the middle of nature. That's my favorite musical themes that play then. So those inputs don't generate the music, they just structure it. So each time the app opens, once it's got all the data back, including pollution data, humidity, which interesting to see how it will sound today with high humidity and high temperature, you know, rain, snow, all of these things affect the structure of the song and the mix of the song, but they also affect the narrative of the song as well. And that's what made this project interesting, I think, because it's taken so long to develop. Over the years, the technology isn't what's interesting about it anymore. It's actually how a narrative can change in songs. So the fact that if the song changes every time, then if you're singing a story, you could have different perspectives of that story. So the longer and the more times you listen to this song, the deeper you get into the world of the song and you hear more vocals and you get more of the story and narrative, which I think is interesting. And also there is some technology that was left over that we kept that worked really well, which I'll talk about in a minute. But it's not a generative system. And AI didn't write the song. I composed it and performed all of the music. And At first, we began with a really complex system that Florian designed called the Semantic player, which was really a great prototype. And it used picture-based mixing, so it could create a mix based on the analysis of all the stems that I produced. But there were a few issues with it, like there was silence sometimes. Sometimes I wasn't happy with the mix as well. So I wanted more control over the sounds. So it began as a highly complex system, and then it's ended up where we have made a more simple system, but we've composed a lot more music so that we have that variation. So the artwork.
I remember what you forgot. Searching for your digital fingerprint. Selecting memories from the network.
So before I play how it sounds now, as I said, it's a slow artwork, so you can't experience it in one listen. It demands multiple listening sessions, which in this day and age might not be the best idea because we have such a short attention span. But anyway, it's become a slow artwork. So the more you listen and the more conditions you listen to, then the story slowly reveals itself. And that's the kind of artistic idea that I wanted to use. So just to give it some framing, so we started working with semantic AI, and artistically, I was also worried about the ethical implications around semantic AI, hence the bubble of the algorithm, creating the bubble. And also I was very concerned with the idea of surveillance capitalism as well. So although we were experimenting with the technology, the work ended up becoming a critique about the ethics around the technology too. So semantic machine, it's why it's called this, is because it's a fictional apocalyptic AI entity that's trained on your personal data that you give away for free when you use the internet and have cookies and all those things that we do and sign user agreements without reading. And it's the lyrics are over a struggle of control between human and AI, and they explore longing, power, privilege, and the desire to experience the world from another person's perspective. And they also draw on the historical image of the dancing plague, with the repeated instructions to keep dancing, which becomes a metaphor for continuing with our everyday lives and surrendering ourselves to systems of capitalism. So it's kind of gets a bit deep there. And it gets a bit scary, like it's a dark work. That kind of on purpose is supposed to freak you out a little bit sometimes. In some user testing we did in Australia, one student said, I didn't like it in the middle of the night. It was telling me it wanted my brain and it wanted to get inside my head. And I was like, oh, good, that's the point. Anyway, so if you have a listen now, we'll see if it will work. And have a listen and see whether you can, see from the first listen what changes and what stays the same, and how the meaning might shift across versions as well. So let's see if I can make this work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've got a video backup if it doesn't. So okay, so there's a menu system, but we'll just play it. So
Accessing your location.
Okay, so we got a grant to pay a young up-and-coming 3D designer to do the visuals. He's quite obsessed with this idea of nostalgia and video game visuals, which I'm not, but that's collaboration.
I can see it all. Drowning away. I can see it all on this day.
have a listen to how it sounds somewhere else. So we can explore in the app. And maybe we can see how it sounds in the pyramids of Giza right now. Still got, really likes this one. See the sound that I hear at the time. But so there's less buildings, or there's the sun here, so there's less to look at. So the visuals change as well with the weather and location. The visuals aren't a big part of it, and I sometimes wonder if they should be there, because I've noticed that people have a look at it and go, oh, well, I can't really do much.
Can see
And then they
your
give up
eye.
instead of listening to the song, because it's a song. So I'm not sure if I'll keep them, and it'll be interesting to get your perspectives on whether the visuals are worth keeping.
Inside your mind, inside your mind, I desire, I desire, I desire.
Should we have a listen in Kyoto where Florian is?
Inside your mind.
It's like this it gets stuck sometimes. It's the beta version, so I've got to look because it shouldn't be playing every time. Might just try it again and see. There is some randomness too, just a little bit, so you will sometimes get a slightly different experience. It's getting a bit stuck.
Can you see this merry-go-round just revolve round? Dance away all your fears of doomsday.
There's a
Shake up all the mess around as you revolve round. Shake up all the mess around. All the mess around as you revolve round.
I'm watching you
Shake up
now,
all the
took
mess
a little bit to
scanning
catch
your
up.
location.
Really loved that one today.
Watching
Anyone
you
else
and the
would like
world
to have a
around
listen?
you,
Anywhere
creating
else?
your song.
What about Antarctica?
Okay. So it's dark there. Interestingly, I thought with location services it would be in the middle of nowhere, but the GPS we used for Antarctica was the middle of the station where there's lots of things. There's like cafes and restaurants and stuff. So interestingly, it's come up as like a sort of fairly close to businesses, but not in the nature, which is interesting. But maybe we should change the coordinates to make it Antarctica away from the station. Oh, you can see sometimes you can see the aurora. So at night time, generally there's no lyrics or drums, so it's more of an ambient mix through the night. And it just keeps looping in your location as well, so you can keep listening to it over and over again and hear the little changes. It's interesting to hear it go from calm to storm. And I did that in Salzburg, just as clouds, and all of a sudden there was a thunderstorm, so I got to hear the way that the weather changed the song, which was really cool. Oh, and there's a floating ghost. You can see. So it's having trouble just because it's going from my phone to the computer, so it doesn't usually slow down, skip like that. So just exit that. So at the moment it's in beta testing, and I have a postcard for you all. So if you want to, you can sign up as a tester. So we thought that the App Store was going to be more difficult, but it's live in the App Store and Apple. We decided to charge £1 for it because it was about finding new value. We thought giving it away for free kind of was a bit, yeah, but we wanted people to download it, so we just charged it £1. So you can download it already on the App Store and Apple, but if you do it through here and sign up, then I've got some coupons so you don't have to pay. And with Android, they won't let it go live until I've had 12 testers testing for 2 weeks, which is actually really difficult to get going, especially out of semester where I could just get my students to do it, but it's out of semester in Australia. So yeah, so you just need to fill out the details and I'll get you the coupon within the next 24 hours so you can download it. So at the heart of the artwork, it is sort of quite dark, and it was before ChatGPT, before COVID. So it was kind of, as that started happening, I'm going, I wish I released it beforehand, but it's kind of a good time to release it because people are starting to have varied opinions about AI, and these ethical considerations are coming up more and more. So it might be a good time if anyone listens to it. So to show you how this works and how it worked in the end, so there's over 100 stems of audio that can play in any combination. We had to organise those differently over lots of different sessions of testing it. We had to use must-play stems so that there's no silence. So there's some stems that have something, whether it's a sound going the whole time. Then there's extra stems which add different parts, maybe useful phrases or different elements to the structure. And then the vocals are a separate group, and also the drums are a separate group. And the data basically organises them through FMOD. So each data field that we get, we have it as a parameter in FMOD that we can control things. Also, Florian wrote quite a lot of code based from the Semantic player that we brought into Unity. So we do still have some feature-based mixing that we originally were experimenting with. And the ones that we liked was, if it's a hot day, then the system finds the cooler tonal sounding instruments or the stems, which I don't know, I doubt you noticed, but in the example that we heard of right now, it was actually mixed quite brightly, and there was some bright elements. And just with this idea that if it's hot, it might cool you down, which it doesn't, but doesn't cool you down with heat, but air conditioning. But also if it's a cold day, then it's the warmer tone, and we put a bit of a warmer, I just do a shelf, you know, to boost some of those warmer tonal areas of the spectrum. And we also, something we really needed was for the vocals. So when only a couple of stems are playing and it's quite ambient, it's still nice to have the vocals, but the vocals are too loud in the mix. So we had to come up with a way to be able to control the gain of the vocals. So the solution we came up with was basically just adding together the overall gain after doing an analysis of all the stems and figuring out how loud the vocals need to be based on how many stems are playing approximately, and that seems to work quite well, and that just controls the makeup gain on the compressor of the bus that controls the vocals. So that was like a nice little fix. But apart from that, we we kind of kept it simple. And the music's quite simple. I'd like to change the drums because they're way too simple, but I had to start simple because I'd never done it before. I wasn't sure how to compose like this. But essentially, it's based around vertical reorchestration, again, composition. So it's just layering sounds over and over. So I probably don't have long left, do I? I've only got a couple more slides, a few more slides. So the evaluation criteria that I looked at, and I sort of built it on digital instrument evaluations as well, and how people are evaluating digital instruments, because there's obviously a lot of blurring with transmutable music. You could actually make an instrument instead of a song. Like it's a very good area. So these are the three criteria. So transmutability, lots of people in certain fields are using the term to describe doing creative things with data to produce artworks. So creative use of data, whether it's sonification or something in that means. So transmutability is the manner and extent to which the control data is employed to alter the music. So, for example, a complex kind of system in transmutability would be something that can alter the smallest hierarchical part of the song. So we have the duration, the master level, and a simple example would be like the semantic machine. It's just turning stems on and off, where you could build a system where the data is changing the wave type or the going down to a Fourier transfer. And I never said that right because I don't know how to do them. But you could actually have the data doing something like that to build a really complex system from the ground up. The thing that I think is most important from my perspective as a composer is variability. And that's how much variation you intentionally compose. So instead of when you're in the studio writing a track, you kind of are trying to find the best way to make that song work and sound the best. But if you're doing it with something for dynamic music, you're trying to create the most options you can for that work to explore how that could sound. So the most important thing is that each time you hear the work, it offers a unique auditory experience, because otherwise what's the point of doing it? If you don't realise that it's the same, that it's changing, just write a track and put that out. Much simpler. And then experience, of course, a lot of this is in music interaction, part of human computing interaction. So the design and testing of the work and making sure that the work from a conceptual and functional perspective works for the listener. So the paradox which I've spoken about in transmutable works is, so when you're listening to this app, you're listening to that app as a static song. So you're listening to one version of it. And lots of types of transmutable music are different. So you've got like a remix app that needs interaction from the user. And you've also got like Brian Eno's generative app like Reflections, which you don't need to do anything to. It's a generative work that changes autonomously or generatively, sorry. So especially for music that requires no audience interaction, like Reflections and like the Semantic Machine, we designed it because we didn't want people to be able to change it. We wanted people to have to change their location and go places to explore how the song could change. It's part of the conceptual idea of the artwork. So if you don't need an audience interaction, then the variability and the feedback needs to be auditory. It needs to be in the playback. So it needs to provide a new experience for the listener and needs to be unique and unfolding and not representing any other moment but the now. So I think it's really important that people understand it's dynamic. I've sort of stated that a lot. So in the experience design, understanding the influence, does the user understand their impact on the music? Does the system deepen the listening experience? Is it accessible and user-friendly to use? And are users motivated to fully engage with the system? And finally, how do users emotionally connect with the work, because music is an emotional communication. So that's an important element. So that's how I would sort of, if I'm making something from now on, I would think about all of these things as important parts of the creation. And then finally, the evaluation criteria, the table on transmutability and variability. So the variability in the musical architecture and content, and also the variability of the resulting form of the work, and the transmutability. So the amount of control the data has on the musical architecture, the level of control. So does it go down to the Fourier transfer, or does it go down to the wave type, or does it just change a phrase, or does it change a loop, a stem, that kind of thing. And then the control system in design in relation to the control and process. So is there a complex system that can analyze the audio, take snippets of it, process it or synthesize it and re-put it together. So those are the main things. And we can see here's an evaluation of a moon-shaped pool by Redhead, and it received 0 because it's not a transmutable music work. That's just to show you the frame. So yeah, everything I've spoken about is in my book, and it'll be great to get your feedback on what you think about the conceptual model and the evaluation. I mean, there's a lot more detail in the book, but yeah, it would be very helpful to get your feedback on that. So I'll just finish with this. Change is the only constant, and maybe music, like life, is more powerful when we embrace that truth. So thank you for listening.